What's up everyone, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be giving you my full card predictions and betting breakdown for UFC Atlantic City. First off, I want to apologize for how late this video is coming out. Typically I want to have my prediction videos out by Thursday at the latest, but I was busy, things kept popping up and it's delayed it all the way back till Saturday. Probably could have got the video out tomorrow, but the issue was there were a couple of picks I was not confident at all about, and I wanted to make sure that I was doing my research. And when it comes to picking underdogs, which there were quite a few I was considering going into this card, I want to make sure I'm doing my research so that I'm not just going out here waffling and giving you picks based off of a feeling. Anyways, I've done my research. I'm sorry this video came out so late, but I'm here to give you my full card predictions and betting breakdown. So let's start out with the first fight of the night, which is Angel Pacheco versus Caolan Loughran in this matchup. I almost wanted to pick Angel Pacheco because he is a guy that I love, but I'm picking Caolan Loughran because of the grappling. We have seen Angel Pacheco get taken down by Danny Silva. Now, when he has gotten taken down by Danny Silva and a couple times in the regional scene, he seems to get back up to the feet pretty well. Now, there were a couple of times where he's taken down at the end of the round by Danny Silva, and he was held there at the end of the round because it was kind of just one of those things where he was already losing the round. No real reason to expend all this energy to kind of get back up to the feet when you're already down. Probably was rocked and he was getting hit all over the place, but he has an insane chin. He has insane cardio, and he is so much fun to watch. I am rooting for him heavily. He has some of the greatest heart I have ever seen. And I'll say this much. People are saying, well, Caolan Loughran is just going to knock him out on the feet. Caolan has great power and blah, 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 blah. I don't like Caolan, whatever it is. I don't like his striking all that much. He looks stiff, and I swear, I was watching some of his fights on the regional scene. This dude has the zestiest stance I have ever seen, where he goes out there and he is staking his ass out. It looks super gay. But anyways, nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, but it just looks weird, man. He looks so stiff. He doesn't move his head, but he actually kind of did move his head a little bit in his most recent performance. That was against Taylor Lapalus. Like, he was moving his head at times, even though he looks so stiff. He's just a weird guy to predict for me on the feet. I think Angel Pacheco is the better striker. He is the longer, rangier guy. If you look at him on the scales, he was shredded. He's bigger, great cardio, and what I do like about him is he dips to the body very well. He's got good elbows. In a dogfight on the feet, I'm picking Angel Pacheco. In a striking fight on the feet, I'm picking Angel Pacheco, but Caolan Loughran has the power to potentially put away Angel Pacheco. But we just saw Angel Pacheco take like 200 clean strikes to the dome against Danny Silva, who has good power and just beat Josh Culibao. And I picked Danny Silva over Josh Culibao. And a lot of people are on the Culibao side, but I've got Danny Silva there as a 2-to-1 dog. And I'm telling you here, Angel Pacheco has a great chance. And I actually think at plus 350 right now, I can't believe that is the line, he is the best value on this entire card, because I think Caolan Loughran has around, I'll say a 55% chance. And that might be a little bit controversial, but Angel Pacheco is a brown belt. And when he's gotten taken down in the past, he's been able to get back up to the feet, and he's got the cardio, and he's got that heart to really bring the fight to Caolan Loughran, who I'm not that high on his striking. I think he looks stiff, like I said. I think he kind of plods forward. Although he showed improved head movement in his last fight, that was against Taylor Lapalus, who's not going to be able to push the same pace as Angel Pacheco. And Angel Pacheco is just kind of a guy that I trust to push his opponents into adversity. And we'll see if Caolan Loughran can deal with the Angel Pacheco pace. I might be hyping him up a little bit too much, but I do think that Danny Silva is a very solid fighter, and he went tooth and nail. Although he lost 30-27 and got caught with clean shots, he took so many clean, and he took so many so well, and I'm not going to trust in Caolan Loughran to find a knockout here. So I'm going Caolan Loughran by decision. I'm going to say 30-27. One of the rounds is split like 29-28/30-27. I'll say 29-28. I think Angel Pacheco will get around, but there will be controlled time versus damage. It's just, when I watch back fights of Angel Pacheco, I haven't seen him face a wrestler. I haven't seen him face a grappler. I haven't seen him face a grappler, and Caolan Loughran has good takedown entries. He is strong, and obviously he has a power threat on the feet, and typically, when you're a grappler with good power threat on the feet, it sets up your takedowns very well, and it makes it that much harder for the opponents that are stuffing the takedowns. Anyways, Angel Pacheco is live. I think he's the better striker. I love his cardio. He can bring adversity to Caolan Loughran. It's a different type of adversity that not many opponents get to face. But Angel Pacheco has been taken down, and based off of that, I think Caolan Loughran is the best opponent he has faced when it comes to controlling opponents, and probably when it comes to a submission game. But like I said, Angel Pacheco is a brown belt. Is it tested? Not really, but he has some submission wins as well. But I'm not going to pick him just because we seem to get taken down. But don't bet Caolan Loughran. Let's move on to the next part of the card, which is Andre Petroski versus Jacob Malkoun. In this matchup, I am taking Jacob Malkoun. I know a lot of people want to go with Andre Petroski, and I actually understand that. He trains at a good gym with good grappling overall. I think he's got a good submission game. He's got good takedown defense, but I don't really like his cardio, and Jacob Malkoun is a guy that can take down good grapplers, I do think. Now, I know he's not taking on the who's who, but he has beaten some good competition, had a very close, interesting decision against Brendan Allen. I don't even remember who I scored that fight for. I'm going to say Brendan Allen could have got it on damage, but Malkoun had a lot of controlled time and had a lot of success against Brendan Allen, who has a great submission game as well. So I kind of like Malkoun, and what I do like about him is he's a grindy type of guy. Pause. But he's a guy that will go out there, put you up against the cage, and he's got very nice drag singles, and he's that type of guy. He's got this type of wrestling that when he takes you down, he's going to keep landing takedowns, because once he gets in that first grappling exchange and you get back up to your feet, now you're giving up your back. That's where Jacob Malkoun finds a lot of takedowns very well. Another example of this, and it's not the direct comparison when it comes to the wrestling styles, but it's Movsar Evloev, who when he gets you taken down that first time, he will have his arms latched around you. He's not going to give up his grip, and you will be fighting the hands. You'll be fighting to get back up to your feet. And when you're getting back up in those positions where you're back up on your feet in the clench, trying to kind of turn yourself around, grab those underhooks, this is where Movsar Evloev and guys like Jacob Malkoun are good at dragging their opponents back down. Now, neither one is fantastic at controlling their opponents, but Jacob Malkoun might even be a little bit better than Movsar Evloev. And an example that I'm talking about with this, and I know Movsar Evloev, Greco-Roman style, Jacob Malkoun, not a Greco-Roman wrestler, but my kind of point is he's a grindy type of guy that uses singles, chains together takedowns pretty well up against the cage, has great cardio, and I kind of trust him to just win one of the early rounds against Andre Petroski, who has shown lackluster cardio. But yeah, I was talking about Movsar Evloev, just talking about the Greco-Roman wrestling style, but kind of what he did against Arnold Allen is he wasn't really finding takedowns earlier in the round, but it came down to like the last 30 seconds or so. He found one takedown, and Arnold kept getting back up to the feet, and then Movsar kept taking him down. I want to say he got like 3 or 4 takedowns at the end of round 1 just because he got into the positions that he needed to get in order to find takedowns once he found that first takedown. If that does make sense, and I think Malkoun is one of those types of guys. Like I said, wrestling and their styles aren't directly comparable between Malkoun and Movsar Evloev. But where I was getting at is I think if he finds one takedown, he's going to be able to weaponize his pace, because he has a really, really, really annoying style to fight against. We saw this against Abdul Razak Al Hassan, and that's another reason why I am picking Jacob Malkoun, because we have seen him muscle up very, very big and strong fighters. Now, this is the best grappler I want to say he's ever faced outside of maybe arguably, Brendan Allen. So Brendan Allen is a good fighter, but that was a fight he had a lot of success in, and I kind of just love the fact that he goes out there, he grinds on his opponents, and keep dragging him back down to the mat. When I look at the striking of Andre Petroski, it looks kind of slow, and although he is powerful, I went from watching Andre Petroski, I want to say versus Gerald Mearshart, and there was another fight where I was watching him strike, and then I immediately went to watching tape on Jacob Malkoun. And I saw Jacob Malkoun striking, and he is much quicker. He has the quicker hands. And even if Andre Petroski has all the finishing potential here, I don't trust him to find the finish. And I love Jacob Malkoun's ability to put the pace and pressure on his opponents. Now, he is hittable, and Petroski can find the finish. But if Allen couldn't do it, I'm not going to trust Malkoun. And I know styles make fights, but I think Malkoun is just good at grinding people and putting the pace on them. And Andre Petroski hasn't shown the greatest cardio throughout his career. Moving on to the next fight of the card. Fuck, man. Melissa Gatto versus Victoria Dudakova. I forgot this fight was on the card. I didn't do my research. I don't want to give you a pick. I won't give you a pick, but if you check the comments on this video before the fight card starts, I promise you I will have a pick pinned probably. Anyways, my point being, I don't like giving picks without doing research. I guess I just did research for every other fight but this one and forgot this one was on the card, so that's my fault. I am sorry about that. Moving on to the next fight of the card, Ibo Aslan versus Anton Turkalj in this matchup. I'm taking Anton Turkalj. I know a lot of people love Ibo Aslan. Dude, look at his regional scene record. He is taking on Costco employees. Maybe not even Costco employees. Like, these guys genuinely might be unemployed. We're talking about guys with like 5-9 records. And then you go back and you check up on their records, and it's now like 7-22. It keeps getting worse. I just haven't seen him face much adversity. I haven't been able to find much tape on him, but he's fighting in promotions that I don't know. He did fight at Brave FC, and that was the one fight that he lost to Anton Turkalj the first time. In that fight, he was kind of beating Anton Turkalj the whole way through, but Anton Turkalj found a takedown, and then he submitted Ibo Aslan immediately. Ibo Aslan's, his scrambles are bad, and I just can't trust him. Where was I going with this? Yeah, his regional scene opponents look horrible. There was one opponent that looked somewhat decent that he fought. He was a 4-0 guy. Fought him way back in the day. That opponent's now 10-3. I don't know how that opponent's 10-3 because he looks like dog shit. But he did beat his opponent by round 3 KO. So I was watching that fight. at least trying to find that fight. You can look for his fights anywhere, and you will not find them. I had to do like 10 minutes of digging just to find that fight because I'm like, all right, I want some piece of evidence to bring that I don't feel like a lot of people are bringing. And I finally found a highlight tape somehow from some weird YouTube channel that has nothing really to do with fighting, maybe a little bit to do with fighting. But anyways, in the highlight tape, what you see is Ibo going for some strikes, and then all of a sudden he's getting mounted on the ground against a guy that looked horrible to me, a guy that I thought gassed and looked slow in round 3, and that's probably why Ibo found the knockout in round 3. But Ibo was getting mounted by this guy, and I'm like, dude, come on. And the other decent opponent he has ever faced, the only decent opponent he has ever faced in his career, outside of the Contender Series. Actually, I will bring that fight up. That was a decent win from him. But Anton Turkalj was this guy. Anton Turkalj lost early, sure, but then came back, found takedowns, and got an immediate sub. And I'll say this much. Ibo Aslan has done nothing but knock out Costco employees, package deliverers. You get the point. Like, these guys should be working at Walmart. They should be plumbing, whatever. They shouldn't be fighting. And that's who Ibo Aslan is taking on at Crap Promotions. I don't trust Ibo Aslan. I don't trust his record. I have seen him get taken down now by that 4-0 guy who's now 10-3, like I mentioned. And Ibo Aslan obviously has a win over him, and he did KO him. But that guy looked horrible, man, and he looked frail. And I can't believe you're getting mounted by him. And what I will say about Anton Turkalj, I rewatched his fight on the Contender Series. He's got improved trips. He had some decent control time, and his striking has improved. I don't know if Ibo Aslan has improved. He goes out there, and I have said from the jump, I have not been high on his performance. I had a video breaking down every single episode on the Dana White's Contender Series and the best prospects you should look out for. Ibo Aslan did not make the top 10 from that entire season, which, I mean, I'm not really going to put many heavyweights on that list, but, or light heavyweights, I guess this is, so never mind. But I thought he looked sloppy even in that performance. He wings hooks so wide. I think Anton has the quicker hands here. He has the much better grappling, and he has the much better cardio. Ibo Aslan does not have good cardio. And what I was going to get at is I feel like trips are so hard for certain people to defend, especially at the higher weight classes. And Anton Turkalj showed very good trips, very solid trips for a low-level light heavyweight fight on the Dana White's Contender Series. And I know against Tyson Pedro, he just got sparked, and I did pick Anton Turkalj there. I thought he'd be able to weather the early storm because he did against Vitor Petrino, and then he would be able to take over with his cardio. That wasn't the case, but I will say this much. Tyson Pedro has a tougher style on the feet, I do believe, than Ibo Aslan, because Ibo Aslan, man, slower, might be a little bit more powerful, but he wings hooks and he's loading up, and these are the type of shots that you can just duck under and find takedowns. And I can't stress how bad his regional record is, man. He didn't take on anybody. Anybody. Look at the records, man. It's actually a joke. It genuinely is a joke. I'll break down this fight stylistically. Sorry, I keep getting sidetracked. But Tyson Pedro has much quicker hands, I think, than Ibo Aslan, and they are straight punches. And even then, like, Anton Turkalj took a punch, seemed to recover, and then he got caught with another punch, and Pedro followed him up. And Pedro's a guy that's dangerous in the first round, but Pedro has better takedown defense than Ibo Aslan. He's a much better grappler than Ibo Aslan, and I think that Ibo Aslan's going to get tripped. He's going to get clinched up early, and that's what I did see about Anton Turkalj and Ibo Aslan in their first fight. Anton Turkalj didn't really want anything to do on the feet with Ibo Aslan early. He immediately went to clinch. Ibo Aslan kind of entertained the clinch, but wasn't able to explode out of the clinch that I would like to see if I was going to predict him here. And like I said, it took one takedown and like 10 seconds on the ground for the fight to be over, right? I think Anton Turkalj, just from the game plan I saw in the first fight, is going to look to clinch up early. He knows the power from Ibo, and he is the bigger fighter, maybe not more jacked, but he's much taller, much rangier, better cardio, faced adversity, much better opponents on the regional scene, and I like that Anton Turkalj has had success against Vitor Petrino and took big shots from Vitor Petrino and was able to recover. I don't think his chin is that bad. I think it's actually pretty decent. I know it's weird to kind of trust it coming off a knockout loss, but I mean, come on, now losing to Jail Tunnel Mate isn't that bad. The Pleasure Man is going to get it done, and he is going to pleasure my bank account here by round 2 submission. I also think he's going to be very nervous, not only because he's a UFC debutant, but if you check on his Instagram, these are the weird factors that I like bringing into fights, but why not? He was at the John Jones meet and greet as a fan in line, right? He's going out there, oh, John Jones, sign my hat, John Jones. Anyways, outside of that, standing in line for John Jones, and it's like, dude, you're a UFC fighter. You don't need to be fanboying over John Jones. I'm sure you could meet him in a much less lame setting, but anyways, he sat in line for John Jones, asked for his picture, asked him to sign his hat, and you could tell he was a fanboy. And there's nothing wrong with being a fanboy, but just as a fighter, I mean, that kind of is a little bit concerning for me in a UFC debut when you're just proven to be a very high-level fan of the UFC. And not only that, on the regional scene, he already had a pair of UFC shorts, wasn't even in the UFC, didn't have his name. Like, why are you buying UFC shorts if you're not in the UFC? I think he's a fanboy. I think he's going to be nervous in the UFC debut. Anton Turkalj has the mental edge here. I got to go with Anton Turkalj. We're back in the pleasure man here. Round 2 submission. Moving on to the next part of the card, we got Conor Matthews versus Denis Buzukja. These guys are trash, and I hate this fight, and they should both not be in the UFC. But Conor Matthews did beat that one kickboxing striker on the regional scene that a lot of people were hyping up. I want to say his name was Jair Farias. I rewatched that fight. I mean, Conor Matthews won with his grappling, did have success on the feet, but that guy just didn't look that good. That guy looked sloppy. He was getting tagged time and time again. And I'm going to go with Denis Buzukja because I like his striking. I think it looks a little bit more crisp. And on the feet, he has the more variety of attacks. He'll have a flying knee. He has a good body kick, some decent low kicks, a good head kick. Both these guys have taken on bums in the regional scene. Fuck, man. Bums. Conor Matthews got his ass beaten by Francis Marshall. But personally, I don't think Francis Marshall is that bad. He lost to Isaac Dolgarian, who is a good fighter, very clearly a very good fighter. Dominated Christian Rodriguez for the first round, 10-8. Round 2, I thought he probably should have got that round. I thought he probably should have won that fight, but that's not important to this breakdown anyways. And Francis Marshall lost to William Gomez, who actually looks like a decent fighter. Although he's boring, he seems like a fairly good technical fighter. And I don't know. I saw Conor Matthews get taken down there. Everyone's saying, well, Conor Matthews has the jiu-jitsu edge, but does he really? Because who has he submitted that isn't a Costco employee? He genuinely took on like a 15, and I want to say like a 96 record guy in the regional scene. I think it was on short notice, but he didn't take on anybody. I don't even think he's taken on guys with regional or winning records outside of his last opponent. And I watched that fight. That opponent looked horrible. He isn't taking on good competition. And Denis Buzukja really hasn't either, but he's taken on higher level of a competition on the regional scene. I mean, it's just these guys are bad. Denis Buzukja has lost to Jamall. Emmers just got knocked out in the first round, and Jamall Emmers is a fight that I'm going to be breaking down very soon on this card. But Denis Buzukja, he has the ability to take this fight down to the ground. He showed some decent takedown defense on the Contender Series, but he's actually been taken down multiple times, so I don't know. His takedown defense is very wishy-washy, but he seems to have pretty decent scrambles. Although Conor Matthews has good submissions, I mean, you look at him, and you look at his profile, he's only a purple belt. And I'm not saying jiu-jitsu belts play into everything, but that kind of tells you he's not the highest level jiu-jitsu guy. And although he's finding submissions on these guys, you got to look at the guys. You got to look at the caliber of opponent, and they are just trash bums where, I mean, if you or me trained for a year, we could probably get a first-round knockout in the first 30 seconds on these guys. Maybe not. I'm hyping it up a little bit too much, but you get what I'm saying. I don't know where they find these levels of competition. He trains with the New England Cartel, so that means he's getting looks with Calvin Kattar and Rob Font. I kind of do like that for him, and he is a southpaw, so that is something to note. And he was able to pressure Francis Marshall at times, but then he would get caught and then put on the back foot. I think he's hittable. I don't like his cardio. That's the main reason why I'm going with Denis Buzukja, actually. I think Conor Matthews might have success early, but Denis Buzukja has shown better cardio to me. And we have seen Conor Matthews, like I said, get taken down by Francis Marshall, who actually had a striking threat. And I haven't really seen him defend a takedown recently, I want to say. At least not by any slightly even close UFC level fighter, or even just a decent regional fighter whatsoever. I'm like, why is he in the UFC? And Denis Buzukja, man. Jeez, I hate this so much. But when it comes to crap versus crap, I'm going to go with the guy that has the better cardio, and I just think has the more diverse attacks. Although he's been hit and he's coming off a knockout loss, I'm low confidence on this pick. But I got to go with Denis Buzukja. I like his camp a little bit more. They have a little bit more well-roundedness to their game. And like I said, Conor Matthews has been controlled, and I think that Denis Buzukja will have enough as a striking threat to find takedowns if he wants to go for him. And he should be able to go for him, but I can't trust him. I don't like Denis Buzukja, and I don't really know how I feel about Conor Matthews. Moving on to the next fight of the card, Herbert Burns versus Julio Arce. And I'm going with Julio Arce. I'm going to say a round 2 KO. He missed weight. I'm not sure how that's the case. He's got decent power in his hands. Maybe not the greatest. Yeah, maybe not the greatest. But Herbert Burns will gas. He will fall off a cliff. I'm actually playing him by round 1 submission here because there is some good value on it. And he is live for the first round. He can bring some problems to his opponents. But when it comes down to it, Julio Arce should be able to stop the takedowns. He should be able to light him up on the feet. And I might just play round 1 on Herbert Burns because he does have some decent power, and he is just overall pretty dangerous in the first round. But you get what I'm saying. It's round 1 or bust for Herbert Burns, and that's not how I'm going to predict you to win fights when I mean, you don't look as dominant or as good as a Khamzat Chimaev, and that is kind of someone who's been later than 1 round as well. And although he gasses out, like, I mean, he's still in there, and he's just not going to completely look like he's quitting. That's what Herbert Burns does. I think Arce is going to have some success in round 1. Beat Burns' ass towards the end of round 1, and then when it gets to round 2, he'll land some big shots and find a round 2 early TKO. And Herbert Burns is going to get cut, as he probably should have been already. Anyways, moving on to the next fight of the card, Virna Jandiroba versus Lupita Godinez. In this matchup, I'm going with Lupita Godinez. I think she showed good takedown defense against Tabitha Ricci last fight. And obviously won that fight on the feet. I think her striking looked pretty good. She should be the better striker, and I kind of trust her stuff to takedowns here. Although Virna Jandiroba did prove me wrong in her last fight, I want to say I predicted a fighter against her. Let me freaking pull up the damn fight. Marina Rodriguez. I think I want to say I actually predicted Marina Rodriguez because I was thinking, well, Marina Rodriguez, I mean, she's quick. She should be able to manage range, although she hasn't shown the greatest takedown defense. I don't think Virna's that good. Virna impressed me, and I will give it to her, but we're looking at Lupita Godinez, who I'm much, much more confident in the takedown defense of than Marina Rodriguez. So Lupi's going to be the pick. I think she is the better striker. Minus 200. Personally, I would not play it, but you do you. She should stuff the takedown, should be the better striker, but she's made mistakes before. Well, she will shoot takedowns on fighters that she shouldn't, and Virna has been a girl that has proved me wrong in the past before. Against Angela Hill, there were some impressive not scrambles, but just impressive moments there for her. And Angela Hill is a good win on resume because she is a decent fighter for sure. And Angela Hill is a girl that I want to say I picked as an underdog in her most recent performance. That doesn't matter. But anyways, Angela Hill always seems like a very, very, very live underdog. And I'm going with Lupita Godinez just because she should be able to stop the takedowns and she should be the much better striker. But I've been wrong before, and Lupita does seem to have low fight IQ at times. But she's got good cardio too. I was impressed by her last performance, even though moments scared me. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Nate Landwehr versus Jamall Emmers. I almost went with Nate Landwehr, but I almost feel like if I'm picking Nate Landwehr, it's a little bit out of bias. But also at the same time, there is a real scenario where he wins this fight just by pressuring Jamall Emmers, making it a dogfight and winning that way. And I think Jamall Emmers can easily, maybe not easily, but he can definitely get dragged into that fight. But he does have some wrestling of his own. Now, Nate Landwehr does have some slick submissions, is the higher level jiu-jitsu guy. But Jamall Emmers will be able to take him down if he really does try to. Jamall has some good wrestling in his own right. He has been taken down before, so that is a little bit concerning. And this could look a little bit like the Onama fight, but Emmers is much better at managing distance, I would say. He's got much better ability to kind of float around the outside of the octagon circle and then find different attacks on his opponents. And I think his striking is much more crisp than David Onama, who maybe doesn't wing shots, and he does look crisp at times. But, I mean, as the fight goes later, Jamall Emmers is going to be much more crisp. I like how quick his 1-2s are, and I think that was a strike that was finding a lot of success against Nate Landwehr in his fight against David Onama. That fight was so much fun. I was actually there live. It was a blast to watch. But although I'm a big fan of Nate Landwehr, I can admit the dude does get hit, and although Jamall Emmers doesn't have devastating knockout power, he's got some good pop for sure. As he just knocked out Dennis Buzukja, but we just talked about how bad I think Dennis Buzukja is and Connor Matthews, and I hate that fight. But anyways, Jamall Emmers, he kind of floats around the octagon pretty well, and although Nate Landwehr can make it a dogfight, and if he is able to pressure and cut off the angles against Jamall Emmers, that could be massive. But this is a larger octagon. I kind of trust the movement from Jamall Emmers around the outside. He does have a couple of decent low kicks. He will work the jab. And like I said, I just like the straight punches from him. It allows him to keep range pretty well. He can work the low kicks when he wants to. Does he go to him super often? No, but he has some decent kicks as well. Something that does concern me is he was pressured and knocked out by Julian Erosa, who would have been a pretty good gauge to see how he does against pressuring fighters. And he looked uncomfortable at times, but he had success in the pocket. And then he got caught with the head kick. I don't think Nate Landwehr is going to pressure him perfectly into a head kick. Plus, Jamall Emmers has massively improved since then. His most recent fight, he just knocked out Dennis Buzukja. Before that, I thought he beat Jack Jenkins. Now, a lot of people are extremely high on Jack Jenkins. And those are the people that are going to be picking Jamall Emmers. Personally, I think Jack Jenkins has been a little bit overhyped. Jack Jenkins isn't bad by any means. I'm just saying that I don't think he's as good as everyone's making him out to be. Everyone's saying, oh, he's this great prospect. I haven't really seen it. He looks good, and he's got good low kicks, and he actually has aesthetically pleasing striking, but that doesn't make you a good prospect in its own. He's got good cardio, but Jamall Emmers, I truly did think, beat him, and I think he probably should have worked in a couple more takedowns. He did at times, but, I mean, I just trust his speed. He's quick. Although he isn't as rangy as I originally thought he was, I saw him face off, and It's not as big of a frame discrepancy as I would have thought, but he is quick. Like I said, just straight punches were connecting for David Onama, and I trust Emmers to have the better cardio than David Onama. Probably the better takedown defense. And although Onama showed some good submission defense, and Emmers has been submitted, I don't know if that's going to end up being a problem. I will say this much, if Emmers beats Nate Landwehr for the first 2 rounds, I'm going to lie bet on Landwehr because there's always a scenario where Emmers shoots in on a bad takedown and Nate Landwehr catches him in one of those dark chokes he has. That's pretty good. He's a slick submission game, but I didn't like how he looked against Austin Lingo either, and obviously against Ige, he just took a lot of damage, but did win that 3rd round, so credit to him. Nate Landwehr is a live dog. He can make this a dogfight, and if it becomes a dogfight, he can win this. But I think I've seen interviews of Jamall Emmers as well, kind of saying that Nate Landwehr is the wild guy and I want to be the technical guy in this fight. And even if I heard him, I know that he has good chin recovery. He mentioned, he's like, dude, he just gets knocked down, pops back up. He's like, so I'm not going to rush into any finishes like I have done in the past. The Pat Sabatini fight's one that comes to mind, but he said he wants to be technical here. He knows about the wildness of Nate Landwehr and just kind of how he can get drawn into a dogfight and just how he doesn't want to just rush in while hurting Nate Landwehr. And I think that is something that I like to hear from the guy that I think should be able to pick on part at range. So let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Chidi Njokuani versus Rhys, McKee. Oh, man. Fuck, dude. Chidi Njokuani cutting down to the welterweight division is not something that I like to see. If you don't know, the reason why his voice is so deep and just, I guess, unorthodox, it's weird, but it is kind of a cool voice. But he screwed his voice up cutting to the welterweight division, I want to say, twice in 2 months. So that's already kind of a concern where you know he's draining himself a lot down to 170. I already thought he was a big guy for the 170 pound, 185 pound division against Gregory Rodriguez, who was the more rangy guy. I was thinking, okay, he's pretty big. He is lean, so I don't know where he's draining all that weight to, but he's had a full weight camp for it, or sorry, training camp for it. I mean, he was on the scales and he didn't look that drained. He doesn't look, he doesn't look like he's decaying out there. He doesn't look super malnourished. More than normal, too much more than normal, I will say. And when it comes down to it, Rhys McKee is extremely hittable. Chidi Njokuani has very, very good power. And I think he's slick, man. I know he got knocked out by the Polish guy who just got knocked out by Michel Pereira. Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. I picked Mikhail Oleksiejczuk there against Albert Duraev. I thought he possibly could have won that fight. And then against Gregory Rodriguez, Gregory Rodriguez dogged his way out of that and landed the big shots. That's the thing about Chidi. His cardio's not that good, and when adversity hits this guy in the face, he does wilt at times, and I don't like to see that, but he is a black belt. I think he's the more technical fighter, and although he's the middleweight taking on the welterweight, and there has been a skill gap before, Chidi Njokuani has good power. Rhys McKee does get hit, and I don't think he's going to deal with a powerful guy at the middleweight division. And as long as Chidi Njokuani doesn't look extremely gassed in the first minute of this fight, I think Rhys McKee shouldn't be able to take the power from Chidi Njokuani. I think Rhys McKee is a bad fighter. I don't know if he is UFC caliber, but there is a way where he wins this fight just by surviving early. He's been durable in the past, but I don't really trust him here. I think Chidi Njokuani is slick. And like I said, BJJ black belt should be better in most areas of the game. I'm going to be pissed if Rhys McKee wins this one because I really don't think he's good. Moving on to Bill Algeo versus Kyle Nelson. I'm taking Bill Algeo. Both of these guys are very underrated. Kyle Nelson, he's got some good cardio. He's kind of a good veteran with some nice old tricks up his sleeve, but Bill Algeo is also a veteran. They both have good cardio, like I mentioned, but Bill Algeo fights well at range. He's got a good kickboxing style. I think he actually might be more of a karate type of guy, but he's got some good kicks. He's got some good movement. Stayed away from the power last fight against Alexander Hernandez very well. Black belt, I want to say as well. Gotten takedowns of his own, just constantly pushing a pace, constantly busy. I like his style. Although Kyle Nelson can find takedowns, and if Bill Algeo finds himself on bottom, I don't see him submitting Kyle Nelson, and that could bring problems. But I do kind of trust his takedown defense enough, and I do think that Kyle Nelson struggled with the range of Jai Herbert, who is a long-rangey kickboxing style of striker, and he's going to struggle with the range. Similarly here to Bill Algeo, high volume. This is an interesting matchup. It kind of is, but I kind of hope that it's fun because although it's interesting and both these guys are underrated, this could be a pretty boring fight, especially if Kyle Nelson's going for his good old clinch control. But I don't trust his power enough to land the big shots in Bill Algeo to win the rounds. Maybe he finds the takedowns when Bill Algeo is looking for submissions off his back. But I do think Bill Algeo has shown a good ability to get back up to the feet, create some scrambles where he has found some submissions. But I'm going with Bill Algeo. I'll say by decision. I love his pace. I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem for Kyle Nelson because he has good cardio on his own, but I just kind of love his range. I love how busy he is, and I just think the style of Bill Algeo is so hard for a lot of fighters to deal with, no matter how many years they have in the game. And Kyle Nelson, Although he beat Fernando Padilla, I wasn't like blown away by his performance. He's never been like insanely impressive. I was kind of a little bit more unimpressed with Fernando Padilla, a little bit more pissed off that he lost that fight. And in a rematch, I would heavily consider Fernando Padilla, potentially end up picking him there. Yeah, I mean, I don't think his veteran tricks are going to work against Bill Algeo. I think that's a pretty simple breakdown. Pretty confident in Bill Algeo. I want to say he's probably my most confident pick on the card, but maybe not. I mean, I'm not extremely confident in him. I wouldn't play minus 250 because Kyle Nelson's a guy that's proven me wrong before. But Bill Algeo, I like the guy. I like the guy. I think he's a solid guy outside the featherweight rankings who actually could potentially get ranked with the right matchup. Anyways, let's move on to the next fight of the card. Nursulton Ruziboev versus Sedriques Dumas. And man, I do think Nursulton Ruziboev is a fraud, and I'm pretty damn confident in it because his takedown defense looks horrible. And how has he lost fights before? It's where he's off his back looking for submissions, and after a round, he gasses out. He's got good power, and he is the better striker, and he has the better submission game, but this is going to be something that is triggering for some people. I think he's the worst wrestler here. I've seen him get taken down multiple times. I haven't loved his takedown entries, and even when he finds takedowns, he immediately gets reversed, makes so many mistakes. His scrambles aren't that good. He does have some decent scrambles, but what he does have is a very wicked submission game. He's got some nice Kimuras. He's got some very nice just submissions off of his back. We don't really see him in top control that often. If he had some solid wrestling, I mean, he would be such a confident pick here, but my worry is he gets taken down, looks for submissions off his back, can't find them. And as a result, Sedriques Dumas survives a round, and then he wins rounds 2 and 3, potentially finds a finish because Nursulton Ruziboev, his cardio isn't that good. On the regional scene, he's been taking on horrible opponents. He's beaten some good ones. But like there was a guy that was 15 and 2. Just based off of that guy's physique, I don't know how that guy's 15 and 2. Now that fight lasted like 45 seconds. And when he shot a takedown, he got Kimura'd. And Ruziboev is very good at doing that, finding submissions off of takedowns. Kind of Diego Lopez style against Gavin Tucker. Obviously, most of them aren't triangles, but you get what I'm saying, where he'll latch up submissions while someone is shooting takedowns, be looking for the submission constantly. And I like the fact that he has a good submission game and good power in his hands, and this is a very rangy guy. He's now taking on Sedriques Dumas, so these are both probably the most rangy fighters they have both fought throughout their career. Something interesting to note, I think the better striker is Nursulton. I think he has the more power, and I think he has the more finishing potential, but it's going to take a round, and if he doesn't get it done in a round, Sedriques Dumas wins this fight, and I am so concerned Nursulton's going to go out there just looking for the KO, hunting for it, and then he gets taken down, and then he just can't find the submission that he needs, and he loses this fight. My official prediction is they're going to be striking. Nursulton is going to go out there, he's going to clip Sedriques Dumas, and Sedriques Dumas is going to shoot it on a takedown, get it, but then he's going to get armbarred as he has been submitted multiple times. So I'm going to say round 1 submission from Nursulton Ruziboev. I do think he could potentially find takedowns. I haven't loved Sedriques Dumas' takedown defense, and I was just so in awe. I was amazed by how bad Sedriques Dumas and Abu Azaitar looked in their last fight. I was saying, how is this UFC level fighters? I just think Sedriques Dumas is horrible. And although I think Nursulton is a fraud, Sedriques Dumas to me has been proven to be one of the lowest level middleweight fighters there are. And I do kind of like the fact that Nursulton Ruziboev knocked out Bruno Ferreira in the first round. That's a very impressive win. In a rematch, I probably would go with Bruno Ferreira. Funnily enough, I actually would. Just because I think Bruno would look to find takedowns, and he's got a good submission game of his own, so he probably could survive the submission threat from Nursulton. I just think Nursulton's untested. I don't know. Maybe I do, but I haven't really seen the promotions that he's been fighting at. Let me pull this up just to make sure I'm not yapping right now, but like, the record of his opponents is just very suspect. He's fighting at Alash Pride 71. I mean, we've seen sometimes these fighters in different countries, maybe Uzbekistan, they have their own little promotions where they can pad their record a little bit. He's 33 and 8 with 5 losses by decision, 6 losses by decision. So that tells you he does gas out. I have seen him gas out before, and when he gasses out on bottom, Sedriques Dumas has had success while being on top of other opponents, like a Cody Brundage. Cody Brundage would make a mistake, put himself on bottom, and Sedriques Dumas is just sitting there, and he's able to control him for a decent amount of time on top. Another opponent that he faced where he was controlling on top was his UFC debut, I want to say. Was that Cody Brundage? No. See, now I got to bring up fights. This is annoying. Let me find this. I was watching Sedriques film, and now I can't bring it up. What's up with this, man? Sedriques Dumas versus, maybe, I guess it was just Abu Azaitar. It was Abu Azaitar, so I've just been saying a bunch of bullshit. Yeah, anyways. Point being, Sedriques has some decent takedowns. He has an ability to kind of just sit on top, and I don't think it takes that good of a grappler to take down Nursulton. And now that we're at the UFC level of fighters and we're not at Uzbekistan's stat padding promotion, this could bring him problems. But I'm still going to pick him because he is dangerous, and I do think he has a good skill set on the feet and a good skill set on the ground in round 1. I think he finds a submission, like I said, after hurting Sedriques on the feet. But if Sedriques goes out there, he says, I'm going to wrestle, and I am going to make this boring just by surviving the first round, but after that I'm going to work in everything. It'll be interesting. Now, the last time we've seen Nursulton lose was a long time ago, and maybe he has improved his cardio. I want to say it's been like 5 years, and maybe he has improved, but that takedown offense has not looked improved. He's getting taken down by almost every single one of his opponents, no matter how bad they are. And he crashes in kind of in a way to where I feel like he can get caught overextending. Sedriques takes him down and gasses him out and just wins maybe all 3 rounds. I could genuinely see that being a possibility. I think if Nursulton loses, everyone's going to be like, holy crap, this guy was the biggest fraud. And I know a lot of people are on the Sedriques side on Twitter. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. So, yeah, let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Chris Weidman versus Bruno Silva. In this matchup, I almost went with Chris Weidman, and that might be a little bit of a hot take, but I can't stand how many people are just going out here and saying Chris Weidman's old, he's washed, and Bruno Silva has good knockout power, therefore Bruno Silva's going to win this fight. I can't stand how lazy people have been with their breakdowns, because I have actually looked around other channels, some breakdowns on Twitter, whatever the hell it might be, for an actual breakdown in this fight, and there's very little people that actually have a breakdown on this fight, and it's really annoying. Because they just go out there and they say, okay, well, Bruno Silva's going to smoke him in the first round. Chris Weidman looks washed. And while that is true, that's not all there is to it, man. Bruno Silva is a much better matchup for Chris Weidman than Brad Tavares was, because Brad Tavares has nasty low kicks, and he's got good takedown offense, and he is the crisper striker than a Bruno Silva. Chris Weidman has solid cardio. He obviously has solid takedowns. Sure, he didn't look as good as he has looked in the past, and Brad Tavares did just beat him, but Brad Tavares, like I said, has just much better tools to beat a Chris Weidman than a Bruno Silva. I know Chris Weidman's been KO'd 6 times throughout his career, but 2 of those were bullshit. One of them was that weird illegal knee thing, so like that's not even close to a KO whatsoever. Super weird outcome. And the other one, what was the other one, man? Gosh darn it. Oh, it was the leg break against Uriah Hall. So 2 of those aren't KOs. He got KO'd 4 times, once by Jacare, once by a flying knee by Yoel Romero. Oh, boo-hoo. The other one was the KO from Luke Rockhold, where he ground and pounded him out, kind of found that takedown, got in dominant position, and you know what I'm saying. So anyways, volume TKO with the ground. I don't see Bruno Silva getting in that position. And the other one outside of that was it a flat line? Was it not a flat line? Let me pull it up. Gosh darn it. It was Dominic Reyes. Yeah, there you go. Dominic Reyes, light heavyweight, powerful light heavyweight. So there you go. Don't fault him too much. I don't think his chin is that bad. I don't think he's extremely chinny. And the way that I'm breaking down this fight is Bruno Silva's kicks aren't as good as Brad Tavares'. His striking isn't as clean as Brad Tavares'. And I know he beat Brad Tavares, but that was an early stoppage first off. And if Brad Tavares survives that round, I really don't mind the idea of Brad Tavares winning round 2 and winning round 3. And Brad Tavares since looked pretty good against Gregory Rodriguez despite getting KO'd. Gregory Rodriguez is a pretty solid fighter in the middleweight division, and Brad Tavares was bringing him problems, was connecting very clean on Gregory Rodriguez. Chris Weidman does look slow. So my pick is going to be Bruno Silva, and I'm almost mad at myself for picking Bruno Silva because I've been telling myself all week, Chris Weidman's a good dog, Chris Weidman's a good dog, and he is one of these guys where I'm going to tell you, I'm not picking him, but he is good enough value to where I will have action on Chris Weidman. The way I am going to play this fight is after round 1, I think Bruno Silva should win it, should have some big moments, but that's where he starts to gas out, that's where he starts to slow down. I'm going to be betting on Chris Weidman, maybe not heavily, but I'm going to sprinkle on it because he might be plus 400. Plus whatever the hell it might be, and Bruno Silva has slowed down. And if the Bruno Silva that showed up against Gerald Meerschaert shows up here against Chris Weidman, I am pretty confident, very damn confident, that Bruno Silva will lose this fight. Because maybe it's just because a takedown threat was there from Gerald Meerschaert, and that just made Bruno Silva fight extremely panicked, slow, and I hated the way he performed at that fight. I couldn't stand it. He was patient, and patient Bruno Silva isn't that good, but when it comes down to it, I think Chris Weidman's going to try and pressure in this fight, and this is what swayed my pick towards Bruno Silva at the last minute, is against Alex Pereira. When Pereira was pressuring him, Bruno Silva will trade, and when his opponents were pressuring in the past, that's where he's found some big shots, and he was connecting very clean on Alex Pereira, and I know Pereira is hittable, but kind of the point is, what I'm making with this is I think Weidman, he looked at pressure against Brad Tavares. He'll do the same thing here against Bruno Silva, but Bruno will catch him with the bigger shots, and I kind of trust him to win the first 2 rounds. However, if Chris Weidman is finding takedowns, he wins this fight. If he pressures forward, and isn't getting caught with big shots. I don't know. I'm not so high on the wins of Bruno Silva. Like, sure, he lost pretty well to Alex Pereira, but I mean, who was he beating? Wellington Turman. He's a welterweight, and he's out of the UFC now. Outside of that, Jordan Wright, Andrew Jackson, or Andrew whatever the hell his name is, and he got taken down 7 times and then found a KO in round 3. Weird fight, and then his other win was against Brad Tavares, early stoppage. Good win, but I don't think Bruno Silva is that good. The reason why I'm kind of just so weird on this prediction is we got a guy that I think is a fraud being extremely overrated in this matchup versus a washed guy who I feel like is being underrated in this matchup, but I'm still going to go with Bruno Silva. I think this one turned sloppy after Bruno Silva can't find the finish in the first round, and I think he's going to get the second round because he will land the bigger shots. But if Weidman is finding takedowns, he will win this fight. I just kind of also saw Bruno Silva stuff takedowns against Brendan Allen, and they looked like pretty solid, quick shots. And he stuffed them very well, and he went up pressured. He hurt Brendan Allen at a time, and I kind of do think that's something pretty solid to do. And like I said, I mean, I just don't think Chris Weidman is as quick as he used to be, but the leg kick threat was what could have potentially made Chris Weidman look a lot worse than he actually was in that fight. So I'm so low confident. This is actually my lowest confident pick on the entire card. I know everyone's so confident over the moon on Bruno Silva. Yeah, don't bet him. Don't bet him. I think he's a horrible bet. He has the finishing potential. That's another reason why I will pick him. But I kind of think this one gets scrappy, and I think he'll win the first 2 rounds, and it will be a close decision. He could actually just go out there and smoke Chris Weidman as well, but I kind of do see this one weirdly getting scrappy, and Bruno being a little bit cautious at times, which will lead this to be a very weird fight. But like I said, I think Bruno is overrated, and people are just completely overlooking Chris Weidman in this matchup because he is old and he didn't look that good. But come on, man. Like, he's not that bad. He is not that bad. Bruno Silva also is a black belt, but how many times has he been submitted now? Like 8 times. I've fallen for the trap before. Against Gerald Meerschaert, I'm like, hey, Bruno Silva is a black belt. And sure, he got rocked before he got submitted, but he still got submitted. And he's been submitted against Brendan Allen, and he tends to get rocked before he gets submitted. But how legit is that black belt? He's been submitted so many times throughout his career. And I can't trust the dude. I cannot trust the dude. I bet him pretty heavily against Gerald Meerschaert. That's probably the biggest loss of my betting career because on paper, he went out there. He had a lot of success against Alex Pereira. He's shown great power. Gerald Meerschaert has looked chinny in the past. He's shown, I mean, not decent takedown defense, but I mean, he's worked out of bad positions on the ground before. And he goes out there passive and has one of the worst performances. He just shit his pants for 3 consecutive rounds. Got caught and dropped by Gerald Meerschaert. That could have potentially been a TKO, but Meerschaert went for the sub and got the sub. Horrible performance from Bruno Silva. Like I said, if that version of Bruno Silva shows up, he's going to lose. And I'm pretty confident about that. But we don't know how good Chris Weidman's going to look. He's coming off a leg injury. What did he tear? His ACL or some weird crap happened to his leg in the Brad Tavares fight? I mean, coming off an injury after already being injured badly with that leg break. I can't trust you. You're 39 years old. Fuck. I hate that I'm going with Bruno Silva. I feel like a pussy for doing it. And the heart is saying Chris Weidman wins this one, but Bruno Silva has the finishing potential. Despite the cardio issues, and even against Shariput Magomedov in his last performance, he looked like he was slowing down and was able to rest with the takedown. So I hate this. I hate this fight for this reason. If Bruno Silva wins, Chris Weidman washed, he sucks, he needs to retire, blah, 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 blah. It's just going to be one of those scenarios where it's sad to see. And if Bruno Silva loses, Bruno Silva sucks. Holy crap. And it's never going to be giving Chris Weidman any credit. And Chris Weidman's probably going to win. If he does win it, I'm saying. And then he's going to go out there, return against a higher level fighter, and probably get sparked. Because he's not at the level of these ranked fighters in the middleweight division. I can say that pretty confidently. But I just don't think Bruno Silva's that good. So Bruno Silva's the pick. I'm going to say a weird, scrappy 29-28 decision where Chris Weidman wins round 3 and Silva edges out round 2 based off of damage. But I could also see Bruno Silva just going out there and smoking Chris Weidman in the first round because he does have the quicker hands. He does have the more powerful hands. And I'm not sure Chris Weidman has the speed to evade the punches like he once did. Low confidence, lowest confidence pick on this entire card. So moving on to the next fight of the card, Vicente Luque versus Joaquin Buckley in this matchup. I'm taking Joaquin Buckley, man. I'm taking Joaquin Buckley, and I don't feel good about it. Vicente Luque is a guy I have a lot of respect for, but I didn't think he looked that good against RDA on the feet, and everyone's saying, oh, well, Luque can mix up takedowns. Joaquin Buckley has shown good takedown defense throughout his career, stuffed takedowns against Albert Duraya pretty well, and when he was taken down, he got back up to the feet very, very well, actually. Wasn't held down for much time, and he's stronger here. He's a stronger fighter, probably is the more powerful fighter in this matchup. I feel like he's going to be the guy that wins most of the fight. I'm talking about minute-wise, and he could get caught with some big shots because he does rush in and make me a little bit concerned. But against Chris Curtis, I know he was caught with the hook, and that's everyone's reason for picking Luque over Chris Curtis, over Joaquin Buckley, and it does make sense, but I'm going to come out here and tell you, I'm picking Buckley in a rematch against Chris Curtis, and the reason why I say that is because he was beating Chris Curtis very handily in the first 2 rounds, and then the reason why he got caught. And the same thing could happen in a rematch versus Chris Curtis, I fully understand, but he was looking so good in round 2 up until he throws a head kick in a same stance positioning. So they were both in southpaws, what I'm saying. And the head kick that he thrown, which just does not make sense to throw, landed on the back of Chris Curtis, and then he got caught for a hook. So now you're going to say, well, dog, how can you use that as a factor to like on Joaquin Buckley here? You know, he got caught by a hook against Chris Curtis. I'm going to tell you this. It's a southpaw versus an orthodox stance. The head kicks will be there for Joaquin Buckley. We saw the southpaw and Jeff Neal have a lot of success against Vicente Luque, and we have seen Vicente Luque get taken down with takedowns after pressuring him, after overextending against Belal Muhammad. And if you look at that Abdulrazak Al-Hassan fight, Joaquin Buckley did this very well, where he would duck under the shots, explode, and find good takedowns, and then he beat Abdulrazak Al-Hassan by decision, and his cardio didn't look that good. But since I think Buckley's cardio has looked improved. Buckley has talked about this before where he said, you know, I'm doing more cardio and that's why I'm able to make it later. He pushed a good pace against Alex Morono in round 3. I picked Morono there and I made the mistake of doing it. I shouldn't have done it. Morono didn't look that good in that fight, but I don't think Joaquin Buckley looked that bad, and I think his approach in this fight might be a little bit different. He's going to go for the movement. But when we look at guys with good kicks, Wonderboy Thompson, Leon Edwards, these are guys that I've given Vicente Luque problems before, and I don't think the leg kicks from Vicente Luque are going to be as effective as they have been in other matchups because Joaquin Buckley is a southpaw, and I think that does do a lot of work for Joaquin Buckley here. And not only that, I like the movement from Joaquin Buckley. I like the kicking game, and I'm not saying his kicking game is as good as the guys I just mentioned in Leon Edwards and Wonderboy Thompson, but I like that combined with the fact that he can find takedowns. Just because Luque found takedowns in RDA doesn't mean his takedown defense is that good. We saw him taken down and controlled against Belal Muhammad in similar scenarios that we saw Joaquin Buckley find takedowns against Abdulrazak Al-Hassan. And not only that, Buckley's just strong as shit. He's young. He's going to be improving. I think he has improved. His head movement has looked better. And although he does crash in at times, it does concern me. And Vicente can just come over the top and crack him with the hook. I still think that won't happen because Buckley's head movement, number 1, has improved. Number 2, he probably is the quicker fighter in this matchup. I see him having more success with the grappling in this matchup. Although Luque has the better submission game and can find submissions potentially off of his back, I've never been that high on who Vicente Luque has beaten as well. I just think the southpaw stance from Joaquin Buckley, another thing I do want to mention too. If you watch that Razak Al-Hassan fight back, Joaquin Buckley went for combinations up against the cage that was so freakishly similar to the finishing sequence from Jeff Neal versus Vicente Luque, where he's throwing the uppercut at the exact same angle, landing those straight punches at the exact same angle. And although Joaquin Buckley doesn't throw his shots as straight and probably as quick as Jeff Neal, and I don't think he's as good as Jeff Neal, I think he has other factors in this fight, like the takedowns that I mentioned, like the weird movement that I mentioned, that can bring problems to Vicente Luque and have brought problems to Vicente Luque in the past. This is a cool fight. This is fun. I like Luque. I'm actually a pretty big fan of him. I picked him against RDA, like I said, as an underdog. I also picked him to lose to Belal Muhammad, so I have a pretty decent read on Vicente Luque to a certain degree. I did pick Jeff Neal to lose to Luque, so I got that one wrong. But I don't know. I've done my research on this fight. I just can't pick Luque. He's old. I didn't like how he looked against RDA. I don't think he's looking as jacked as he has looked before. Looking a little bit more flabby than normal. I could be tripping. But Buckley's stronger. Although Luque probably does have a cardio edge because we have seen Buckley slow down in the past, I think his cardio's looked better recently. He's mentioned, like I said in his interviews, he's doing more cardio, and for that reason, I kind of trust his cardio a little bit. I trust his ability to find takedowns, mix it up against Luque, and when there is a takedown threat, Luque just simply is not as good of a fighter. And I'm not going to be as concerned with Joaquin Buckley getting caught with a hook while throwing a head kick because this is an opposite stance matchup. Like I said, against Chris Curtis, the only reason why he got caught is because he threw a head kick on the back of Chris Curtis, expecting Chris Curtis to dip behind him straight into a head kick. I just don't understand it. I don't know why he threw it. All the head kick knockouts are in opposite stance matchups. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of factors to like on the Joaquin Buckley side. With that being said, I'm not confident in him because Vicente Luque can easily crack the chin of Joaquin Buckley. But I don't think Buckley's chin is as bad as people will say. It's only really been cracked by, you know, pretty solid power punchers. Alessio Di Chirico landed a head kick on him. That's what hurt him. And then Kevin Holland has some good power too, and that was much earlier on in Joaquin Buckley's career. He's weird. He's unorthodox. I like his movement. I've named all the factors. I kind of slightly trust his cardio, like I said, too. I just think he has so many tools that Vicente Luque won't like. But even with that said, I can't be confident in Joaquin Buckley here, especially if Vicente Luque of old shows up. He can win this fight. And yeah, Joaquin Buckley is going to be the pick. I'm going to pick him by decision by working in takedowns. I think he'll win 2 rounds clearly, and then there will be 1 round that's kind of close where the judges are a little bit split on that round. So Joaquin Buckley is the pick by decision. He could also find a finish. And same thing with Vicente Luque. And Luque can also win this by decision. There's certain factors that I don't trust about him here that I've already mentioned. So let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Manon Fiorot versus Erin Blanchfield. I understand both sides here. Erin Blanchfield has very high-level jiu-jitsu. I didn't like her takedown entries in her most recent performance against Taila Santos, but on the feet, she does pressure very nicely, can eat a big shot. I think this one's going late. I'm going to say to a decision, and I think Manon Fiorot is going to win this. That might be a little bit surprising for some people, but I like her footwork. And she has shown good takedown defense in the past, and that one time she did get taken down against Jennifer Maia, she got back up very quickly, and when she's put in bad grappling positions, she immediately wants to get back up to the feet. I like that. She's got some good trips as well, and that's something that I like to see because sometimes these fighters that can stuff and sprawl takedowns very well get tripped all the time because it's just not something they're very used to countering. But when I look at Manon Fiorot landing good trips, having some solid judo to her base, or not base, but background, it makes me a little bit more confident that she can defend these trips because it makes me feel like she has seen them in the training room. So, Manon Fiorot is going to be the pick. When I'm breaking down the striking, she is rangy. She is massive for this division. But look at the face-off. She is towering over Erin Blanchfield. And I know Erin Blanchfield is a little bit more of a compact woman. I just think Manon Fiorot is much quicker. I know she didn't look extremely quick against Rose Namajunas, but Rose is a very quick fighter. We saw this. She was quick for the strawweight division. And although it was competitive, Manon landed the bigger shots. And I didn't love the performance, but I didn't hate it. What she does very well is she'll throw that lead hook, which I think will be there against Erin Blanchfield, but then she kind of fades out. I love her movement circling around the octagon. She just kind of floats around, and then she'll find her shots. I like her footwork. She's a women's MMA fighter that I have been impressed with multiple times, and I can't say that very often, and for that reason, I'm going to be picking her. Last week, I said the same thing about Rose Namajunas. This is a women's MMA fighter that I have been impressed with multiple times, and I can't say that very often against many women's MMA fighters, and that's why I picked Rose, and she won that fight. It was pretty close. I did think she won that fight, but anyways, Manon Fiorot is a girl that I'm going to pick here because I think she's going to do the damage. I love her takedown defense. It has shown to be good. Now she hasn't faced someone with the takedowns of Erin Blanchfield, but her takedowns have looked bad in the past against Taila Santos. I think all 16 of them were stuff. Maybe it was 12, something like that. But if you watch that J.J. Aldrich fight, and that's kind of what swayed me over the top for Manon Fiorot, Erin Blanchfield looked horrible in that fight until she found that submission. Her takedowns looked bad. She had her takedown stuff, and she got taken down 2 or 3 times, I want to say. Reverse, J.J. Aldrich was just beating her when it came to the grappling game. And sure, when she found the takedowns and had success, it was kind of in just positions that favored J.J. Aldrich, but still, J.J. Aldrich had too much success with the striking, too much success with the grappling, and I know that was a fight that was like 2 or 3 fights ago, maybe 4. That wasn't too long ago. Let me actually pull this up. I want to say that was like 2022, June of 2022, so less than 2 years ago, and I hated that performance. Against Taila Santos, what I like about Manon Fiorot that Taila Santos doesn't really do, it's just as simple as she floats around the octagon, finds ankles for her strikes. I actually think that side kick is going to be money because Blanchfield just pressures in so linearly, just kind of crashes in, maybe not crashes in, but just slowly pressures her way in. That side kick that Manon Fiorot goes for is going to be money. I think it is kind of hard to catch and find takedowns. I do think Blanchfield will find takedowns, but people don't know this. Manon Fiorot right now is a black belt. She announced it on her Instagram, I want to say October of last year. So she's been a black belt for around like 6 months now. I kind of love to see that. And man, southpaw, that can bring issues to Erin Blanchfield as well. She's probably not used to fighting southpaws. Manon is quick, she is big, she is strong, and I know she is French, but I do weirdly kind of trust her, even if she does get taken down to kind of work her way back up to the feet. The question is, can Blanchfield keep her in the clinch as well? Because she has had success that way when she's not finding takedowns. That is kind of why I almost picked Blanchfield, but there's certain performances where I'm like, dude, Blanchfield's striking is not that good. I don't care if she had success against Jessica Andrade. I don't think Jessica Andrade is that good. Manon is a girl that can target the low kicks pretty well too. She's got a good oblique kick. The side kicks are good. The cardio is going to be a question out of both ladies, but both have been 3 rounds without looking that gassed before. I would say if I favor anyone, I'm going to favor the grappler in the later rounds, because when both fighters gas, I feel like it takes a little bit more strength to stuff takedowns. But maybe not, because to land takedowns, it takes a lot of strength too. But, I mean, if it turns sloppy, I'm going to trust Erin Blanchfield, who does kind of clinch. But I'm going to say Manon Fiorot gets at least 3, maybe 4 of the rounds just by striking, just by floating out. I kind of love her exits on the exchanges. I love that she's a southpaw. I think she's much quicker. Are there any other fights I want to bring up? There was a fight I was watching. Oh, against Jennifer Maia. I mean, she does make fights close. And this was close against Rose Namajunas as well. So I do understand the concerns, but some fighters just do kind of keep striking exchanges close. And she does get hit, so everyone's like, oh, she's not the greatest striker I've ever seen. It's women's MMA. You're almost never going to see a striker with good striking defense. It's just how it works out. They don't need to develop good striking defense because they don't really deal with much power. And Manon Fiorot has very good power too. I think it's as simple as this. Submission game from Erin Blanchfield is great. Takedowns, they're cool. They're all right. I'm not massively impressed with them, especially in that last performance. And she didn't do too well with the range of Taila Santos. And sometimes these rangier opponents with good footwork makes it hard for these opponents like an Erin Blanchfield to close the distance because they're shooting from so far out. Another example of like a long, rangy striker with good footwork that's quicker and has some solid takedown defense having success was Sean O'Malley versus Aljamain Sterling. I think that's a pretty solid comparison. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this one plays out. This is going to be interesting. I think that Taila Santos could have won that fight had she not have gone for that weird throw in round 2. She was having success on the feet. And sure, Blanchfield did make it close, did make it competitive, but she was losing that fight. And I think Fiorot is a much better striker than Taila Santos. And her style on the feet, especially being southpaw, especially with that side kick, being able to maintain range better, being able to float around the octagon, circle constantly, find different angles, will bring problems to Erin Blanchfield, who kind of just slowly walks forward. So Manon Fiorot is going to be the pick. By decision, I'm going to say she wins 3 or 4 of the rounds. Not extremely confident in it, but actually for an underdog 2-1, I'm going to be playing it. I don't love Erin Blanchfield's takedown entries, like I said. I've said that so many times now. But yeah, I mean, Manon Fiorot seems like a dog too. She seems like a dog. She can eat a clean shot. She's dealt with adversity before against Rose Namajunas when her head was cut open from that headbutt. I mean, she just went right back into it. Didn't really affect her. And that was a nasty, nasty cut. I like Manon. I like that she's southpaw. I've named my reasonings why. I like her footwork. I think she's quick. I like your takedown defense. I like that she's a BJJ black belt. I like the fact that she's shown some trips to her game. Had a wicked trip against Jennifer Maia and other opponents as well. So yeah, we're going with Manon Fiorot. We're going with her. I understand both sides. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Once again, I'm sorry for getting this video out so late. But I hope you guys are doing well. I hope we do well on this card. Make sure to like and subscribe like I just said. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.